Hey, you made it. That's right. We have done a bonus episode, and today we are talking with my friend Mike, and we're discussing just like being you and your creative self and like letting that through. And I think it's just a delicious little conversation for how to just live your life how you see and how to make that transition. And Mike's a great example of someone who did transition out of what he thought was expected and into what he wanted to do. So glad that you're here. Let's go. This is the Death of a Dream podcast with your host, Hannah Nuss. The Death of a Dream really is my expression from the start of a very sad and low and unaligned place in life where I was struggling with so many limiting beliefs, so many people telling me that I couldn't just go live my dream life. And it really walks every day through what it looks like to transition out of a life that's just fine and into a life that I wanted to live. And so this is just the daily journal of what that looked like for me. You can take whatever you need from here. I talk through different things that I read, different things that helped me through different moments and different blocks that I had to break down to get to this better place. And alignment for me looks like being a serial entrepreneur and being able to write and speak and talk through what life looks like for me and how other people are pursuing their dreams. So the Death of a Dream really is just a journey out of that place and into a new and true place. Glad you're here. Hey, welcome. You've made it to the bonus episode, which means like you're a super fan at this point, obviously. And why wouldn't you be? Okay, so today we're talking with Mike, and this is like the craziest thing ever because when I first started my podcast, I was super jelly of, sorry, I'm sounding really weird right now, but I was really jealous of this one podcast that I listened to, and she had a friend who wrote a song for her podcast, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know any musicians, and that would be so cool if someone did that, and I'm so jealous of podcast people, and I was like, you know what, I'll figure it out. And so we started the podcast, and incidentally, I have met Mike somewhere along the crazy way that the world works. Mike came into my life, and I don't even remember how we connected, but we'll get into that, I'm sure, today. And incidentally, he wrote this song. Now, it was not specifically for my podcast, but if there was ever a song written that lines up with my podcast, Mike has written it. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that song today, and we're going to talk about life and all the big, huge journey that exists because Mike and I have always connected on this kind of subject matter of dreams and living your dream life and showing up and saying, this isn't quite right. So, Mike, I'm so excited that you're here. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Sorry for all the craziness and the jelly and all the silliness, but tell us about it.
That was a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much, Hannah. I loved it. So, yes, my name is Mike. My name is Mike Murray, and I'm living in Brussels, Belgium, currently. I'm from the state of New York, and I am currently a musician who used to be a chiropractor. And if I'm being completely honest, I still do a little bit of chiropractic part-time. But fun fact, I broke my elbow in December and have been off since December, and it has been a massive blessing from the universe for my music, and it has been absolutely amazing. I want to break my other elbow after this. It was totally worth it.
Goals. Just breaking elbows.
Yeah, because it's still painful. It's not at 100%, so I am unable to work, and I don't feel guilty about not working because I have a medical excuse. And I have disability insurance because of my hands. So it all worked out.
Yay.
Yeah.
Or kind of. Yeah, kind of yay. It sucks when the universe has to force you into those situations sometimes in order for you to like listen and just like see what it might feel like.
Hmm. Yeah, at the time I was really frustrated because I literally broke it the day before my 2 week vacation for Christmas. I was going to take the week of Christmas and the following week off up until a little past New Year's. And I broke it the day before coming home on my bicycle that night. Turns out tram tracks are slippery when wet.
Ah, now we know.
Yeah.
In case you're ever
Yeah.
in
Who would have
Brussels.
thought? Who would have thought? Don't ride parallel to the tram tracks, only ride perpendicular to them.
Ah,
And so, yeah, totally ate it, all of it through my elbow, and was really upset because for those 2 weeks, I had the full intention of recording so much music. I was like, oh, I got 2 weeks off. I'm going to get so much done. And that was definitely a kind of like biting off more than you could chew idea, I would say.
mm,
Because looking back, I've accomplished a lot in these last few months for my music, but a lot of what I accomplished took a lot longer than 2 weeks. And I thought I was going to be able to do that during those 2 weeks. So I was pretty upset at first because I couldn't play guitar for quite some time. But once I was able to, it's been an amazing few months.
just everything flows. Okay. So break down. Okay, no. So I really have been thinking about what I'm going to ask you because
Great.
honestly, people who can do music just blow my mind. I can't even really clap on beat. Um, and so you did everything for this song.
Well, yes, on this latest song, I produced it. Now, by production, I mean I recorded it myself. Um, but I didn't play the bass guitar and I didn't play the electric guitar.
Well, you
I
can't play all of them.
No, I can't play every instrument. And I didn't play the organ either. But I did play the drums, the guitar, the acoustic guitar, and the vocals, of course.
No big deal. Just 3 out of the 6.
3 out of the 6. I'm coming for the rest of them for sure one of these days.
And
It's a matter
then
of time.
you produced it. So then you figured out how to
Arrange
engineer and
it.
do all the.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a brand new skill due to COVID. So, so coronavirus happened. Obviously, we were in lockdown for the first few months of last year. And during that time, I reached out to the internet, just posted on Brussels Musicians Facebook page and said, is there anybody out there interested in helping me record my music? And actually a friend responded who I played in a band with at the time. I had no idea he produced music. Shout out to Eve if you're listening, brother. And and so Eve and I made plans to record, and we did record one song. That was my first track ever, my first solo track ever. I've been a drummer my whole life, so I've done a lot of music, recorded a lot of music as a drummer with various bands. So we got together last year, and I'll get to where I'm going, right? Of course, but I don't know. I don't want to make my stories too long.
No, I'm
Uh,
happy with it.
okay. Anyways, Eve and I got together once they lifted the lockdown measures, and we recorded a track together called Friendly Antisocial Type, which is a story in itself. And as we were working together, I mean, shout out to Eve. And at the time when we were speaking, I kind of assumed we would record a lot of it at his studio. And then turns out he didn't have a studio. He just had a room in his house, like I have a room in my house, another room. And we felt that the rooms in my house sounded better than the rooms in his house. So we recorded a lot of it in my living room, except for the drums. Actually, we recorded all of it in my living room, except for the drums. And I guess I'm just the type of person who I have a lot of agency and I want to move quickly. And there was some issues working together, like, versus like ownership of the material at the time. Um, and so that kind of set me on a path of, well, I'm just going to learn how to do this myself. Right. So basically he was about to go on vacation for 2 weeks, and I was like, I can't take 2 weeks off. I want to get this track going. Like the momentum is there. Let's go. So I asked him if he would send me all of the stems, and stems means just everything that we've recorded so far, so that I could monkey around with it in the meantime. And he was not into that idea, because I hadn't paid him yet. And I totally get, from a business perspective, somebody hasn't paid you yet. You don't want to give away the material that you've worked on together. Personally, I was like, man, I'm a really trustworthy person. This kind of bums me out that you don't share this trust, because that's something that's important to me. And there's a great quote by Ben Folds, and he's like, if you can't trust, you can't be trusted. And it's like, I don't know, that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. God bless him, like he's a great guy. But yeah, it just inspired me to learn how to do it on myself. I was like, we're already doing this in my house. I can buy a microphone and watch some YouTube videos and figure this out. And I know that's going to be like upsetting to any potential engineers that are listening. Right. Some kids just like, I can buy a microphone and record my own music.
But that's the world we're living in now.
It is the world we're living in. You can get a really good microphone for not a lot of money. I mean, like starter level money. And I pay a monthly subscription to Pro Tools, which is like $30. It's nothing, realistically. Right. And there it was. I had the software, to record my music. So yes, for this latest track, I produced it all myself.
Which is so cool and mind-boggling, and like I don't understand how you even figure out how to write music, let alone record it, let alone like add instruments to it. It's all very shocking to my brain. But I want to talk about the song, because this song and even your song prior, which you should definitely check out both songs, but this one specifically, I think it's like exactly where I was at when I started this podcast. It's so funny because I was going back through and listening to this track again, and I listened to it when you first released it, and then I went back and revisited it like last week, and I was just like, oh wow, if there was ever a song, this is it. This like the last three years of exploration, this is this song. And so talk me through like how you even got to those words, what led you up to writing that song.
Okay, absolutely. So I started writing songs really heavily about 2 years ago, just over 2 years ago when I moved to Brussels. I had wanted to be a songwriter for quite some time, because I had been a drummer for all my life, and I was always really jealous of the lead singer. He's up there, he's dancing in front of the audience. He's got the guitar. He can move. You're really anchored as a drummer. And as much as I love drumming, I wanted to move my body more. And truth be told, now that I'm kind of in retrospect, I look back, and as much as like I always appreciated the drums in music, I was always more drawn to the vocals and the lyrics. Like that was what was interesting to me, that, there was a certain sound that I liked, and I was drawn to, lyrics and vocals. I was always watching the singer when I would go to shows. So it's not a surprise to me looking back that like I had this drive to be the songwriter. And so yeah, I was playing in quite a few bands in New York City as a drummer, and starting to realize like I had high dreams and aspirations for where I thought these projects could go. And some of that was shared for a short time with some of my bandmates in different projects, but then it would start to fade as we wouldn't get maybe the recognition we were hoping for. So people start to lose interest. And then it felt like my wife put this best one time. She goes, I feel like you guys are all riding a bicycle together, but you're the only one pedaling in the front and everyone else is riding on the brakes. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel right now. Mm-hmm. So it became apparent to me that I needed to stop. This is another quote from my friend Matt, hitching my wagon to somebody else's train, right? Or, and so I was like, I've got to be driving this ship out in front, in charge, of my own destiny, right? Because as a drummer, you're not really the songwriter. You're just sort of backing and support, which is a amazing role. But it still wasn't enough to kind of like propel the ship forward.
Right.
So I got really serious about songwriting when I moved to Brussels. And I had some time off because I had left my job, moved overseas, was figuring it out. That was the deal with my wife. Shout out to Marika. She is endlessly supportive. And okay, so how did I write this song? Okay, so I'm writing songs, right? And when I was first writing songs, I kind of was just writing words that rhymed. You know, okay, oh, that's a
I
funny
suppose
line.
that's where you would start.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it was funny because looking back, like I loved those songs at the time. But then as I really started to dive into music more and songwriting and investigate like what makes a song connect with somebody, right? The age old wisdom is like kind of bare your heart, tell your truth, tell the truth. You know what I mean? Just like put it all out there. I heard numerous artists say exactly that. Like, oh, the song that exploded for me was the one where I was the most vulnerable on. So I started realizing like I need to be vulnerable and direct with my songwriting and tell an honest story. And and so that's where this track came from. This is called "Undo Everything," and it comes from a conversation that I had with my dad when I was in my early 30s. I might have even been late 20s. I was like on the cusp of 30 or in my early 30s. I can remember exactly where we were. We were at his house in the dining room. I was sitting at the dining room table. We were about to eat dinner. I don't know what we were talking about, but all I know is I looked at my dad and I said, "You know what, Dad? I spent my 20s doing everything that you and society told me I should do, and I'm going to spend my 30s undoing all of that." Um, and I think it came from, my dad would always ask about work. My grandfather would always ask about work. Oh, how's work? And a lot of people, how's work? What do you do for work? Well, I got so sick of that question because the truth was I didn't really enjoy work. Never have since I was 15. And so, yeah. And so as I was reminiscing about that story one day when I was walking my dog, I thought, oh, that's a good idea. That's a good story to write a song about. There's a topic there. Um, and from there, it just was like, I mean, literally a few minutes later, I'm walking past Ashford and I was just like, I'm gonna undo
Undo
everything.
everything.
Yeah, exactly.
See, I can't stay on beat, but I'm with you. I'm with you.
No, but yeah, the melody just came to me. That was right at the beginning of the March last year, 2020. And I just came back and grabbed my guitar and started jamming on it. And it came out pretty naturally. So
Yeah.
that's the story.
So the vulnerability piece, and this is like a really tough thing to bear, and especially with how public you have to be about things now. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have a choice. Once you bare your soul, it is done bared, which is cool. But there is, and we talked about this a little bit before we hopped on, there is that moment of like standing in your truth before everybody thinks that it's cool. What's
Yeah.
been your experience with that?
Well, I haven't sent it to my parents yet because
Right.
it really is
Because it
standing in
happened
your
at their
truth.
kitchen table.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I don't know if they would remember the conversation, but I mean, in the song, I say, quite frankly, I say, I'm going to undo everything that I built in my 20s and use this new decade for change. I was told, get your degree and you will live successfully, but I still felt something was missing, right? And so, I mean, my parents know this about me at this point. Like they know, they ask about my music and stuff. They can tell I've been pretty frank with them about my, feelings towards chiropractic as a profession. And but still I haven't sent it like, hey guys, check
Right.
out what I did, because
Here's
that's
the
that's
deal.
in, that's intense. Just send them this song that's such an anthem for my truth and for change, and then to just like, yeah, I mean, woof.
Well, and do you feel like it's sort of a generation divide of like
Mm,
really the parents that raised me and the parents who raised them, it was like, you work and you're
Totally.
miserable and we all sign up for that. And now it's almost like this, like, it doesn't have to be like that, right?
Yeah. It doesn't have to be like that. Shouldn't be like that. Life is too short to live like that.
Right.
And a lot of my feelings, other than coming from my inner 15-year-old who didn't want to start a job at the grocery store, I looked around when I was in my early 20s, mid 20s. I had my career, and I was just looking at my dad and my grandfather and thinking, you guys did the thing. You did it. You did the work for your whole life thing. My dad's still doing it. God bless him. Guy's about to retire in June. I'm so happy for him. But like, he's been at the same hospital in the same little basement room for 36 years, no windows. God bless him. That's a trooper. You know what I mean? I respect that. But they didn't exactly look like they were thriving. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Wasn't this like just like joyful exuberance about their energy? And I didn't want to live my life like that. So I started asking myself the questions of like, what do I want to do? Right. When I was in my early 30s, it's like, what do I want to do? What is it that I want to do next? I knew this was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So now what?
And did you feel weird asking yourself that question? The way that I feel like I was raised, I don't know that I felt like I was allowed to ask that. Like it almost felt like there was sort of a prescription for what was allowed for someone like me. And so it felt weird to like give myself that much permission that I could just decide my own life, really.
That's a good question. Did it feel weird? I'll tell you what, when I was working as a chiropractor, I started working part time, and I didn't even tell my parents that I was working part time because I thought they would be ashamed of me. Like, I actually felt not ashamed. Maybe I said the wrong thing. I felt guilty. Like, who am I to only be working part time because you guys have been working full time for your life?
Mm-hmm.
How dare I only work part time? And so, definitely, like, to then take it a step further and be like, no, I don't even want to do this anymore. So I'm going to create something else. Yeah, I mean, it's probably why, I'm 38 now, and 2020 was the year that I really got serious. 2015, I was pretty serious and I was moving in the right direction. Do you know what I mean? But it's taken me some time to really stand in that truth, in a real, like, concrete way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like that. It almost seems like you would think that people at some point would be annoyed. Like, really, you can't just go to a job like everyone else. And I don't, it isn't, I don't think it's worth it. Now, and you've experienced this too, now that you give yourself that permission, it's like, I can't go back now. Like, we've come too far.
Well, definitely. I I have burned the bridges metaphorically. I've burned the bridges in my mind. There is no plan B. There's only this. I don't see it as, well, I'm just going to keep going forward, right? I see it as a full potential and possibility to make a living this way. I see proof of that in my life because there's other people doing it,
Right.
right? So why can't I do it? Of course I can do it, right? Time, patience, consistency, and
Oh,
never
those
giving
are the
up.
hard ones. The patience and the consistency, right? You just have to keep showing
Yeah.
back up. And you know, when you mix those two things, okay, but patience and consistency are together, but also the standing in your truth, the vulnerability, because that part is probably going to have to come before the payoff of it, and that's a tricky one to navigate.
Yeah, I can see what you mean because, or there was this coach that I worked with, and he always talked about the person who's going to win out. And what he meant by win out was like maybe there was a debate or you know, in this scenario, it was like asking a client to sign up to work with you as a coach. I used to do some coaching. And he was like, the people who are going to be successful are the ones who can stand in the discomfort the longest.
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's like, okay, I'm just going to essentially wear my heart on my sleeve, bear my truth. And if I can stand in the fire the longest, right, it'll work out. Like if I can stand in the discomfort and maybe, you know, hold the space for others to feel that discomfort too. Like if maybe a friend says to me like, oh, wow, that was a lot to take on in one song, you know, like, um, I mean, certain people are going to be drawn to it and certain people aren't. And that's okay because I'm looking to connect with the people who are drawn to it.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think it's just it's so hard because it's not gonna probably be, you know, everything that you want it to be. Like it'll be super cool at some point, but you're right. You kind of got to stand in it for a while before it is. And it's going to make people, especially when you are living in your truth and people can see that, or you're saying things that are, you know, making everybody uncomfortable. And they're like, wow, that was super weird. As long as you can just keep hanging out there, like claim that flag and
mhm.
hold on to it. Like the only way you lose is if you stop.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't plan to stop. If anything, I intend to dig deeper only because I thought like I appreciate what you're saying about the song and I do know that there's a lot of truth in it, right? But I know that I can go deeper also. I haven't quite figured out how yet. I'm kind of like trying to dive further down into the those emotions of my gut and really start to like share those. Um, but yeah, I know that like there's power in that, and so that's my intention, and I think it's kind of fun, you know, like let's ruffle some feathers a little bit. Let's make some people a little uncomfortable because no one's going to change if they're not uncomfortable.
If we're just chilling and, you know, watching eating popcorn and listening to the same old songs about the same old things, like
I know.
that's the beauty of the connection. And I think I can see, like, watching your videos and listening to your music, like I can feel the joy, like just the joy radiating from you in producing this and bringing this music to life. And so I appreciate that, and I'm excited for like you to go even deeper because I can feel that there's more there. Like this is
Definitely.
just like the words that were coming to mind, but I know that there's more deepness to what you're feeling. um
Definitely.
and I'm excited to hear that brought to life because just even the two songs that I've heard so far, um, yeah, you're tapping into real uncomfy stuff, and I feel like it's super important. I agree with you. Trust, as an uncomfy tapper myself, it's
Yeah.
necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, a lot of the greats have shared their truth in sometimes a painful way, it through music, and that resonates eventually with people,
Yeah.
right? You just got to find those people that it resonates with, and that's where I need to do more work.
Well, and I think we're coming up on this like major awakening if we aren't already there, but a lot of people are going to go back to normal life after this pandemic, right? Like back to
Yeah,
the office, back to whatever, and they're going to go, "Oh,
totally.
I don't huh, I don't
What am I
like this
doing here?
anymore." Or yeah, like
Yeah.
and so you're going to find them with your music. Um right in that
Yeah.
moment, that's going to be such a beautiful thing for them to be like, I want to explore what that looks like, um to undo that. Because I don't know, I was told the same things, like just get the degree, just get the job, just like buckle down. And when that path doesn't speak to your soul, how do you give yourself permission to go explore what does?
You gotta, yeah, I mean, great question. And I think it's a complete awareness that we are only on this planet for a short amount of time. Like, you have to recognize that you're gonna die, probably even sooner than you'd like to admit, right? And so getting really comfortable with that idea and letting it scare you, right? And letting it scare you into action, right? Like I just was looking around. I was like, there's no way I can keep doing this for another 40 years, like, and just be so bland and gray in my existence when I'm only on this earth for a short time.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll light a fire under your ass if you really get comfortable with it. Can I say ass? Is that all right?
Yeah,
Swear?
ass it
Okay.
up. Let's go.
Ass it up. All right, well, I'm about to twerk on this Zoom call then. Um, but so I would say that's one part. And then the other part, and I'm going to get a little woo woo here, and I have a lot of guests that preface themselves when they say things like I'm going to say on my podcast.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm doing it, and I'm laughing.
It.
But we are spinning on a blue and green orb in the middle of nowhere, and we have no idea what's going on, right? Like, life is magical. It's straight up miracle. We don't understand it. We never will understand it. We're not meant to understand it. If we did understand it, it would cease to be interesting and magical, right? So that's all part of the whole experience of like living. And I truly believe that this is a quantum field of energy that we're just like perceiving bodies in, and that you can mold your experience however you see fit. So believing that gives me the feeling of empowerment. So, right. So I've got the fire under my ass from like knowing that I'm going to die, and I'm feeling empowered because I'm like, no, this is a crazy magical experience and I can do whatever I want. I can make anything happen with it. Put my mind to it. So let's go for it. Like, I'll share if that's all right.
Yes, please.
We're constantly doing that, but we're constantly doing it on such a normal, standard way that we don't appreciate the magic of it. And what I mean by that is, I was in a band in New York City. We were called Mighty Kind. Such a dear place in my heart. I still love those guys. I still hope we make music together someday. And 3 out of the 4 of us were chiropractors. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. One guy I met in school, we lived in the same area, and the other guy I met at a seminar, and we just sort of came together. Anyways, I was getting into a lot of these thoughts that I was just speaking about shaping your reality and things. And I said to the band, because I thought we had a lot of potential. And I said to them, I said, guys, like, what we did to become chiropractors is exactly the manifestation principle that I'm talking about. Like, but it just didn't seem miraculous or special because people go be chiropractors all the time, or pharmacists, or whatever but at the end of the day, like, I thought I wanted to be a chiropractor. I had the thought. So there was this impulse in my brain. Then I took action to like learn how to become a chiropractor. I started putting in the time and energy to learn it. And then ta-da, the next thing you know, there I am with a degree and people are calling me a chiropractor. And it's just like, that is the whole process right there. It's more
Whoa,
normal.
whoa, 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 whoa. Think about that. Think about like
That's what I did.
think that's like the whole. Is that all that's is like university or college? Is that, do we make that a checkbox so then it seems like something you have to do? So then you invest your money in it, but really all it is you manifesting something over, like if you practice anything for 4 years, you're probably going to be good at it. If you study for
Totally.
4 years, shoot,
Yeah.
if you did that for 1 year, think of where you could be, right? So like the confines of school really just make it concrete and they give you a super specific path. But,
I think,
like,
yeah, I think what school does in that regard is it validates the experience more in your mind. So
right,
we've convinced ourselves that we need something called a degree.
right,
Yeah, so that helps us empower the mind to believe that we are this thing that we're working towards. But like for instance, in Brussels, in Belgium, chiropractic is unregulated, meaning you can just open up a shop and say you're a chiropractor and have no formal training. There's no, so in that sense, like you could have learned from your uncle without a degree and just said and be a chiropractor, and that's totally legitimate. Um, so yeah, who says you need a degree? It just, that's the way it works in the US. So that's what I
right.
did, which is a real simple manifestation. You don't even think about it, right?
You don't. You
No,
because I think you're told that it isn't that it's not magical, that you have to work
of
hard to
course,
attain it.
that's hard work.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that it
Yeah,
takes this, and it is. It is, no
sure.
question, but
Yeah,
I think you're absolutely onto something. Y-
sure.
You
Music is still work, but it's just time and energy and, just focus and moving forward.
Yeah.
It's
And
the same
all of
idea.
it at the end of the day is you mentally setting your mind on something and then working towards it. Period.
100%. Period.
Degree or not.
Period. It's just that everyone around you has given you permission to go be that career that you have decided you're going to be at, like at the age of 24 or something, versus, so that just kind of reinforces the mind that, okay, this is what I'm doing, so this is what you end up creating. Not everyone is out there saying, go be a musician, that's a great idea, go be an artist.
Because it's not checkable, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
going to college, that's a super secure, checkable path, and people could tell you what that's going to look like. And so that seems safer. And then it's going to translate to this job, and that job's going to have this super safe, here's how you do a salary, here's how you do insurance and benefits and all those things. And so, like, that's an easy path. And parents who might say to their children, I want to help you, I'm going to build, obviously, they're going to want you to go that route. It's checkable,
Hmm.
it's easy, right? It doesn't come with all the craziness of understanding how to make an income in different ways. Like, they can't really guide you in that. And neither can a
Yeah,
college, right?
yeah, totally. And it validates their own decisions to do what they did, right?
Right.
So
Ooh,
it's
yeah.
like, if you're not drinking and people around you are drinking, they want you to have a drink most often because it helps validate their own decisions. And, you know, it's same with like join my spiritual tradition of choice, right? This is the way.
Right.
And that
Right.
can be as woo as come to my ayahuasca circle. I've met plenty of people that are really hardcore in their invitations, and so it doesn't have to be Christianity.
Right, right. It can be anything.
Yeah.
But I think that's such a great point, is like it's not always security as much as it is just validation for their own choice. Like, yep, that was the right way, and you're verifying that this is
Hmm.
the right way by getting more followers or more. Yeah. Ugh. Ugh, we're getting into some crazy stuff here. Gosh, I just thought we were going to talk about your
Cool.
super cool song, but this is all about the song, really. Is like
Totally.
your ability to show up and choose yourself over anyone or anything else. Like, and that being the most important North Star, guiding light.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
You.
2020, at the beginning of 2020, I guess it was my New Year's resolution. It wasn't really a resolution, it's more of just like a decision. But I remember saying to my wife, this is going to be the first year that I treat my music as serious as I treat my business. Right? Because up until that point, there was still that sort of, well, this is my business as a chiropractor, so this is what I should be investing more of my energy as far as like finances and educational things and, okay, marketing and business, blah blah blah, time and energy, just like, because that's my money maker, so that's where I should put all of my energy. And keyword is this idea of should, right?
Right.
um, And then 2020 was like, you know what? No, this is ridiculous. Like, I need to be putting this energy into my music. I'm going to give myself permission. And doing so was extremely liberating and only continues to be more liberating. So
And
burn
it,
those bridges.
right. And isn't that funny how we know and we recognize, and maybe we just are starting to recognize it because I certainly am, but it's like, I think of how much energy I wasted that I could have been directing towards something that I love doing, that I just willy-nilly directed towards, right, that safe, secure
Yeah.
path. And think of all the things that could have manifested. It's not even worth thinking about, but like, that's the power of putting your energy towards something. It's like it sustains itself and it actually multiplies.
Yep. It sustains itself. I think that's, well, you sustain it through your consistent action because you enjoy it so much.
Right. Like
Yeah.
you just keep waking up happy, which is
Yeah.
like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. Well, I try to stay in that happiness, that centered place, and
It's a challenge.
yeah, that can be a challenge for sure. But that it just brings the idea of like, starting to ask yourself like, what do I want to do, right? And looking for that energy that sustains you. That's what was going on in my early 30s. I was looking around and different questions about like, what is it that you're doing for free? And I was like, well, I'm drumming. I'm drumming at a church for free. I'm drumming in multiple bands for free. What is it that sustains you and drives you forward? Well, I have no problem getting up at 5 a.m. to drive to a recording studio to record music with my friends. But if you asked me to get up at 5 a.m. to do chiropractic, I would think like, what are you, insane? And to top it off, I'm driving out to this music studio an hour away for free, and I'm spending my own money to do this. And so that was helpful because I started to notice like, this is where my energy naturally goes. This is a very easy way for me to exist in the world as far as like, what do I want to do? And so, it was with that understanding that I made music the more and more of a focus every year.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does. What was that question that you asked yourself then to kind of get to that place?
One of them was, what is it? Well, I mean, there's the one that struck me was, what is it that you're doing for free?
Mm.
Right. But another way to put that is, or another idea of looking at it is, what would you do if you won the lottery? Right. And I even heard a better version of this question that I'll share the other day. And it was by this guy named Seth Godin. I'm sure maybe you've heard of him or some of your readers have, but listeners, readers, future
They read
readers.
this podcast. That's impressive.
Wow. Cool. But he asked a version of this question, and he said he felt a better version, and I thought this was great. I'd never heard this before. Was, what would you do if results didn't matter? And I was like, boom, that's powerful, right? Because he said even when you think like, oh, what would I do if I won the lottery? A lot of people are still thinking about like, well, what are the results that I'm looking to get?
Right.
Right. And so he's like, when you strip away the results and you just are honest with yourself, like, what would you do if results didn't matter? Um, you know, so I
What
think that's
would
a great
you?
question.
Well, and it's and I think Seth is one, he actually started his career just writing every day. He would just show up and write a blog post every day about
Cool.
marketing and different things. I think it was Seth.
Yeah,
Either
I'm pretty sure.
way,
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
I think that's the best way to tap into it. And then just take the comfiest step forward from that place. Like,
Totally.
you don't have to be Mike and you're producing all your own music and you're writing all these songs. You even stair stepped your way there. Like, first
100%.
we start writing the songs, then
Yeah,
maybe we figure out how to play another instrument. I mean,
that's exactly what it was. I mean, it was just, yeah, doing the most natural, comfortable thing next. So kind of essentially having as much fun as possible through exploration. So, 2 years ago, I could barely play the guitar. I still don't play it like some sort of aficionado. I basically play it enough to meet my needs. as a songwriter. And so yeah, at the time it was just like, okay, well, I have a guitar now, let me learn how to play this thing.
Right. Yeah, and I think for anyone who's starting to explore or in the process of exploring, I think that's a beautiful way to guide yourself, is like, really, what would you do if nothing mattered, if no results mattered? Like, what would you wake up and do?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you think because of where you're standing right now, of like misery and maybe not liking your job, whatever, you think you just hang out and want to be on vacation forever, and that's like the normal answer, which means you're probably pretty
100%.
close to burnout, right?
Yeah,
But like, it's not always, it's not, you're gonna run out of that, and then what would you do? Because you may need to rest. That's true.
precisely. Yeah, I mean, I had essentially an adrenaline detox moving from New York City to Brussels and going through essentially a death of the ego, in the sense of, I'm no longer a business owner here.
Mm.
I'm a nobody in that, who am I type of existential experience, and that was a recovery. It was a form of detox for sure, to get that out of the system.
Oh my God. We could do like 12 podcasts. I could talk about that all day. And that's almost super important, because sidelining that
Yeah,
kind
it
of
is important.
allows you to ignore the results up front. So it's like nothing that you do is going to happen right away, unless, I mean, sometimes you really don't know. That's the beauty of the magic of the world.
Yeah,
You don't know. It could all happen tomorrow, right? Or
this
it
is
could
true.
the rest of your life. That's what's so cool. Um, okay, we have to wrap, but where do we find you? Because we definitely want to check out your music, no question. But
Absolutely.
also get you into our news feeds.
Okay, well, so I am on Instagram as the Beat Doc. I know that makes me sound like I'm a DJ, and I have considered changing it recently, but it has some sentimental value.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
love it.
Doc as DOC, the BEATDOC, the Beat Doc. That's because I have a doctorate in chiropractic and I'm a drummer. And my friend at the time that I was in a band with, he started calling me the Beat Doc. And it was a really great nickname. I felt like I really enjoyed it.
Right.
So I'm on Instagram as the Beat Doc, and I'm basically on Instagram. I mean, I do a little bit of Facebook, but not so much these days. So if you want to follow me, that'd be awesome. I would appreciate it. And then on Spotify and Apple and everywhere you listen to music, it is Mike Murray and the Existential Tigers.
Which I love, by the way. I need to explore that with you. But you also have a podcast and a really awesome Facebook group
I
for
do.
creatives and people who are kind of
Yes.
exploring this route. So tell us a little bit about where to find that.
Yes. So the podcast and the Facebook group are now the same name, and they are reconnecting to the artist within. And the podcast is meant to tell stories similar to my story. So people who grew up as creatives, moved away from their creativity due to, societal influences, and eventually circled back around, whether that's full-time or part-time, and you know, some sort of level of focus on their creativity again in their life, whether full-time or part-time, and sharing those stories in hopes of inspiring other people who are, maybe flirting with the idea themselves.
Yeah.
So the Facebook group would love to have you. It's the same name as the podcast. Podcast is everywhere: Apple, Spotify. Just search Reconnecting to the Artist Within.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Check it out. I will have all of the links in the show notes. Thank you so much, Mike, for being here.
Thank you, Hannah, for having me. This is awesome.
It's just been wonderful to know you and to like officially check that box of like, I know a musician, so I'm just saying. No big deal.
Absolutely.
Okay, so make sure that you check Mike out everywhere that he exists. It's wonderful. You'll definitely want to check out the music because it just sort of speaks to your soul. Both songs that I know of
Thank you.
definitely do. Um,
The
as
next song's
always,
coming out on Earth Day.
oh my God. Oh,
Yeah, a couple weeks
okay.
away.
we are going to have to check that out too. I will probably have that in my Insta story, but if you follow Mike, you'll know when it comes out too. So make sure that you do that. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world. Hey, thanks for listening. As always, you can find me on all socials at The Death of a Dream. That's on Instagram. We do have a Facebook page that you can follow there, and then Hannah Nuss on LinkedIn. Go ahead and check out the website if you feel like it. There are additional pieces that are not included in the podcast, and you can reach out and contact me anywhere. If you have any questions, message me. Let's connect. I'd love to talk through your story because everyone's story is worth being told and has worth in it.